In this lesson, I'll quickly guide you through how I set up my Lookdev environment. So, creating a good Lookdev environment is very important because this is where the validation of your assets happen. And there's a few considerations, right? So, when you're doing Look development, really what you're doing is trying to eliminate variables. So usually you've got multiple variables in CG work. Everything is virtual, so you've got the colors of the objects versus the intensities of the light. And as you know, you can drop the color, drop the intensity, and heighten the intensity, and it will kind of become the same color again. So we need to eliminate at least one of the variables. And in this case, we will eliminate the variable of the light. So we want to set up a lighting environment which we are familiar with. So personally, what I like to do when I do my regular Lookdev work, I set up an environment with a ultra bright daylight sunlight. So what this allows me to do is, first of all, I know what this light looks like. I walk around in the sun all the time, and I know how it. You've built up this library in your mind of how things look, and it's better to be using this library that you've already built up rather than, for example, set up a 3-point light setup that you've never seen before, and then do your asset work in there. I personally choose a bright sunlight because I'm not only used to this, it also breaks the shading easily. And this is really something important, because when you do the shading work, you need to test it to the most extreme lighting conditions, because as a lighting artist myself, I know we like to push the lights intensities, and we like to push everything as far as we can. So when the lights can be pushed, we need to make sure that the shading isn't broken. Okay, so that's a bit of theory about the way I think about Lookdev environments, and let's quickly set it up now. So the setup is pretty simple, really. We go into the Arnold tab over here, then we go to Light and add a skydome light. A skydome light is just an omnidirectional light. It comes from all possible angles. Okay, let's switch back to the Lookdev cam. And there it is over here. Here we have the shape node. Let's have a look at what this looks right now. Super flat, as expected, a fully white environment. So let's add a texture to that. Let's load in an AI image. Let's rename this to image Lookdev HDR main, and add this to the color. And let's have a look for this. So in the assets, textures, and then there's a HDRI folder. We pick the tone mapped HDR. This is a HDR I shot myself, so it is also in a bright sunlight, but this is also where I shot a reference for this project. So I know what this looks like. I know it's just a very natural looking environment. It will feel natural to you guys as well. There we go. So let's have a look right now, right? We need to set this to raw, because this is already a linear 32-bit image. Let's have a look what this does. There we go. This looks good. So we have some nice hard shadows, exactly what we're looking for. Then let's create a material for the floor. What I like to use for this is a shadow catching material. So I think right now in Arnold 5 it is called AI Shadow Matte. So all this does is catch shadows. So if we select this object, the floor geometry, and assign this instantly, we will see that it just catches the shadows. There we go. It renders super fast. It looks quite clean. It's nice to have some shadows to see where it just creates a bit more interaction between the objects. Feels a bit more grounded, and I like that. Okay, so that's pretty sweet. Now the background is still distracting me from the actual objects, and you know, like half the time you're presenting things to yourself, and then this is okay, but often you also present to clients, and then you want something that looks a little bit more polished and a bit nicer, and it's a bit prettier, it sells a bit better. What I'm going to do for that is load in another image, a blurred version of this, so we still have some of the environment to judge our objects against, but it's not as distracting. So I've created this. Let's duplicate this image node and rename this to blurred, and then over here we go and pick the blurred image file. This is already an sRGB file because, well, it's just a blurred TIFF. It's not 32-bit anymore. So now, how do we connect this? We should probably go over the light settings quickly first. Obviously, we have the color, then the intensity, that speaks for itself, just a multiplier. Then we have the resolution of the HDR. Sometimes it's important to work with higher resolution HDRs to get nice crisp reflections. So let's put this to 2K. And use color temperature, that's just an override to have a Kelvin scale color temperature. It's very useful for the artificial lights, so for the rectangular lights, but not so much for the sky dome. And let's not touch this, this is okay. Once again, this is the same as the intensity, but it works on a different scale. It's an exponential scale rather than a linear scale. If you're used to photography, this is a bit more, it feels a bit better. And then the samples, for nearly all of my lights ever, I use 2 samples on the lights. This controls the noisiness of your soft shadows. Normalizing the light intensity, leave that on. It's cast shadows, all of these are less important. And then over here we've got a visibility section. When you're actually lighting stuff, this gets used a lot. So this is just a contribution of the light to the certain components. Let's have a look at what this does, for example. The camera, this is the primary visibility. Then we have, for example, the diffuse, etc., etc. So we can tweak the specular components from the diffuse components, etc. So we still have to deal with this issue where it doesn't look as great in the background. So we can't just pipe in this over here because this is a float value. But what we can do is create an AI ray switch. Oops. Ray switch shader. Can get rid of the shading group node. So what this does, this shader is a bit more of an advanced Arnold shader. Essentially allows you to manipulate the ray types for a certain object. So what we'll do over here is we want all of the, like the shadow, the diffuse reflection, etc., etc. All of this needs to come from the standard nice crisp HDRI image. Only the camera sample or the camera rays need to come from this blurred HDR. So if we then pipe this into, the color, we will see that it is the blurred image that it loads over here, whilst still maintaining all of the other components that are very important that they come from this image, because this is the HDR image. This is just a flat TIFF. Awesome. So now that we've done this, we can start shading our objects, and I'm super excited to show you that. This is what we've been building up towards. So yes, see you in the next lesson.